The sharp antiseptic smell of hospital disinfectant burned my nostrils as I drifted in and out of consciousness. Beeping monitors created a symphony of urgency around me, each sound piercing through the fog in my brain. My eyelids felt impossibly heavy, like they'd been weighted down with lead. When I finally managed to force them open, the fluorescent lights above stabbed at my retinas, making me wince. "She's awake," someone whispered. I tried to speak, but found my throat parched and raw, as if I'd swallowed sandpaper. A straw touched my cracked lips, and I gratefully sipped the cool water that soothed the burning sensation. "Easy, Ms. Reed. Small sips," a nurse cautioned, her voice gentle but firm. Memory came back in fragmented flashes. The convenience store, the man in the expensive charcoal suit, the glint of metal, the explosion of sound, the searing pain that tore through my shoulder. I tried to move, but a fresh wave of agony immobilized me. "Try not to move. You've been shot. The bullet went clean through your shoulder, but you lost a lot of blood." Shot. The word echoed in my mind, surreal and disorienting. Me, Eliza Reed, 32-year-old single mother and night shift waitress, shot? It seemed impossible, like something from a movie, not my ordinary, struggling life. "My daughter," I croaked, panic suddenly gripping me like a vice. "Emma, your daughter is fine," the nurse assured me, checking the IV drip attached to my arm. "Your neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, is looking after her. She's been calling regularly to check on you." Relief washed over me, momentarily dulling the pain. Emma was safe. My 7-year-old little girl, the only brightness in my exhausting life, was okay. Nothing else mattered. "The police will want to speak with you when you're feeling better," the nurse added, making notes on her tablet. "And there are some men waiting outside. They've been here since you were brought in yesterday." Yesterday? I'd been unconscious for an entire day. Emma must be terrified. "What men?" I asked, confused. "I'm not sure. They won't say much, just that they work for Mr. Castellano." The name meant nothing to me. I closed my eyes, trying to piece together what had happened. I'd been working a double shift at the diner because Maggie had called in sick again. My feet had been killing me as I'd walked to the convenience store on the corner to grab milk for Emma's breakfast before heading home. The store had been empty except for the cashier, a teenager named Tyler, who always gave Emma free candy when we came in together. Then the bell above the door had chimed, and he'd entered, tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my yearly rent, dark hair swept back from aristocratic features. Even exhausted as I'd been, I'd noticed how he moved with lethal grace, like a predator in human form. His eyes had swept over the store, cataloging everything with cold precision before landing on me. For a heartbeat, I'd felt stripped bare, like he could see every struggle, every vulnerability. I'd quickly looked away, unsettled by his intensity. Men like him didn't exist in my world of discount groceries and past due notices. He'd belonged to a different universe entirely, one of wealth and power that I could only glimpse through the windows of passing luxury cars. Then everything had happened at once. The door had burst open. Another man had rushed in, face contorted with rage, a gun in his shaking hand. He'd screamed something unintelligible, aiming directly at the suited stranger who stood frozen in the snack aisle. I still don't know why I did it. Perhaps it was maternal instinct, the same impulse that would make me jump in front of a car to save Emma. Perhaps it was simply human reflex, but when I saw the gunman's finger tightening on the trigger, I'd lunged forward without thinking, shoving the suited man aside with all my strength. The gunshot had been deafening in the small space. The impact had knocked me backward, and I'd felt a curious burning sensation spread through my shoulder before the pain had hit, white-hot and blinding. I'd fallen, my head cracking against the edge of a display case. The last thing I remembered was staring up at the fluorescent lights, while someone shouted frantically for an ambulance. A light knock on the hospital room door interrupted my thoughts. The nurse hesitated before opening it, revealing a mountain of a man in a black suit, who filled the doorframe completely. His face was expressionless, but his eyes constantly scanned the room, taking in every detail. "Mr. Castellano would like to see her," he said, his voice surprisingly soft for someone his size. The nurse frowned. "She's just woken up. She needs rest. It's important." There was no aggression in his tone, yet the words carried unmistakable authority. Before the nurse could respond, a second man appeared behind the first. He was leaner but no less intimidating, with a scar running from the corner of his left eye down to his jawline. "It will only take a moment," he added, equally firm. The nurse looked at me uncertainly. "Ms. Reed?" I didn't know what was happening, but curiosity overrode my fear. "It's okay," I said, wincing as I tried to sit up straighter. "I'll see him." The first man nodded and stepped aside, and he entered the room, the suited stranger from the convenience store. Except he looked different now, still impeccably dressed in what was clearly a fresh suit, but his composure seemed affected. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. There were shadows under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept, and when his gaze locked with mine, I saw something unexpected. Relief. He dismissed the nurse with a slight nod, and she left reluctantly, shooting me a concerned look as she closed the door behind her. The two suited men remained outside, visible through the small window in the door. "Ms. Reed," he said, his voice low and melodic with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. "I'm Gabriel Castellano." He pulled a chair closer to my bed and sat down with fluid grace, never taking his eyes off me. Up close, I could see flecks of amber in his dark irises and smell the subtle, expensive cologne that seemed to cling to him. Something about his presence made the hospital room feel smaller, as if he absorbed all the oxygen. "How are you feeling?" he asked, studying me with unnerving intensity. "Like I've been shot," I replied, immediately regretting my sarcasm. This man radiated authority, and antagonizing him seemed unwise, though I couldn't explain why I felt that way. To my surprise, his lips curved into a slight smile. "Fair enough." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Do you know who I am, Ms. Reed?" I shook my head. Should I? Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps even pleasure. "No," he said after a moment. "I suppose you shouldn't." He hesitated, then added, "But you should know that I'm the man whose life you saved." "I wouldn't go that far," I murmured, uncomfortable with his intensity. "I just reacted." "You took a bullet meant for me," he stated flatly. "That's not something I take lightly." There was something in his tone that made me uneasy, something beyond gratitude. I shifted slightly and winced as pain lanced through my shoulder. Gabriel's expression tightened. "Are they giving you enough for the pain?" "It's manageable," I lied. In truth, it felt like someone had driven a hot poker through my flesh, but I was used to enduring discomfort. Life as a single mother working 2 jobs had taught me to push through pain, exhaustion, and hunger. His eyes narrowed, as if he could sense my dishonesty. Without looking away from me, he pressed a button to call the nurse. When she appeared, he spoke without turning. "She needs more pain medication. Sir, we have a schedule for now." The single word wasn't loud, but it sliced through the air like a blade. The nurse hesitated, then nodded and disappeared. "You didn't have to do that," I said, unnerved by his command over a complete stranger. "I did." His tone brooked no argument. He studied me for a long moment before asking, "Why did you do it?" "Do what?" "Push me out of the way. Take a bullet for a stranger." His brow furrowed. "You have a child waiting at home. Why risk your life?" I blinked, surprised that he knew about Emma. "How did you—" "I make it my business to know things, Ms. Reed," he interrupted smoothly, "especially about people who interest me." A chill ran down my spine despite the warmth of the hospital room. I'd interested a man who had men in suits standing guard outside my door, a man who could make nurses jump with a single word. This couldn't be good. "So why?" he persisted, leaning closer. "Why save me?" I swallowed hard, trying to ignore how his proximity made my heart race. "I told you I just reacted. I saw someone in danger and I couldn't just watch." I looked down at my hands, pale against the starched hospital sheets. "Maybe it was stupid." "It was," he agreed, surprising me with his bluntness. "Brave, but incredibly stupid." The nurse returned with additional medication, adding it to my IV drip with a nervous glance at Gabriel. Almost immediately, a pleasant warmth began spreading through me, dulling the sharp edges of pain. "Better?" Gabriel asked, watching me closely. I nodded, feeling slightly lightheaded as the medication took effect. "Good." He straightened in his chair. "Now, Ms. Reed." "Eliza," I interrupted, emboldened by the painkillers. "If you know so much about me, you might as well use my name." A smile touched his lips again, this one reaching his eyes. "Eliza," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "I need you to understand something. The man who shot you wasn't a random criminal. He was sent to kill me. The casual way he delivered this bombshell made me wonder if I'd misheard." "What? Why would someone want to—" "That's not important right now," he cut me off. "What matters is that you've unintentionally involved yourself in something dangerous. The man who shot you works for someone who won't be pleased that I'm still alive. Fear began to seep through the painkiller haze. Are you saying I'm in danger now? What about my daughter? That's exactly what I'm saying. His expression was grave. These people don't leave loose ends, and now you're a witness. My breath caught in my throat. Emma, I whispered, panic rising. I need to get to Emma. I tried to sit up, only to be gently but firmly pushed back by Gabriel's hand on my uninjured shoulder. His touch sent an unexpected jolt through me that had nothing to do with pain. Your daughter is safe, he assured me. I've had men watching your apartment and her school since yesterday. No one will get near her. The casual revelation that he had men watching my child should have terrified me, but instead, it provoked a confused mix of relief and indignation. You had no right. I had every right, he countered, his voice suddenly hard. You saved my life, Eliza. That creates a debt, and I always pay my debts. More importantly, your current situation is a direct result of your involvement with me. That makes your safety, and your daughter's, my responsibility. The medication was making it difficult to think clearly. This stranger was telling me that both Emma and I were in danger, because I'd pushed him out of the way of a bullet, and that he'd taken it upon himself to protect us. It was absurd, like something from a movie. Who are you? I asked, studying his perfect suit, the confident set of his shoulders, the way his presence filled the room. Really? Gabriel considered me for a long moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. I'm a businessman with certain enemies, he finally said, choosing his words carefully. Enemies who would have been very happy if that bullet had found its intended target. There was something he wasn't telling me, something important. Even through the medication fog, I could sense it. And now these enemies might come after me and my daughter? My voice cracked slightly. Emma was everything to me. The reason I worked double shifts. The reason I kept going when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me. The thought of her in danger made me physically ill. They might, Gabriel acknowledged, which is why arrangements are being made. Arrangements? I echoed, not liking the sound of that. He leaned forward again, his eyes holding mine. You'll be moved to a private facility where you can recover safely. Your daughter will join you there. You'll both be protected until I resolve this situation. It wasn't a request or a suggestion. It was a statement of fact, delivered with absolute certainty that it would happen exactly as he described. No, I said, surprising myself with my firmness. I can't just disappear with Emma. I have a job. 2 jobs, actually. Bills to pay. Rent due next week. Emma has school. All taken care of, Gabriel interrupted smoothly. Your employers have been informed you've had a family emergency. Your bills are being handled. Emma's school has been told she'll be absent due to the same family emergency. I stared at him, speechless. The casual way he dismissed the scaffolding of my entire life was breathtaking in its arrogance. You can't just take over my life like this, I protested. Gabriel's expression softened slightly. I understand this is overwhelming, Eliza, but I need you to trust me when I say this is necessary. The men who want me dead aren't the type to show mercy to a single mother and her child. If they find you, they will kill you both without hesitation. The stark brutality of his words cut through the medication haze, leaving me cold with fear. How long? I whispered. Until it's safe, he replied, unhelpfully vague. A few weeks, perhaps. No longer than necessary, I promise you. A few weeks away from our tiny apartment, from my jobs, from Emma's friends and school. It seemed impossible, yet the alternative, putting Emma at risk, was unthinkable. Why are you doing this? I asked, searching his face for answers. You don't know me. You could have just disappeared, left me here. Something shifted in Gabriel's gaze, a darkness that hadn't been there before. As I said, I pay my debts. You saved my life at great personal risk. He paused, then added more quietly, and I protect what's mine. The possessive statement should have angered me, but instead it sent an inexplicable shiver down my spine. This man I'd met only yesterday somehow considered me his responsibility, perhaps even his possession, simply because I'd pushed him out of the way of a bullet. I'm not yours, I said, needing to establish that boundary despite the fog clouding my thoughts. Gabriel smiled, a predator's smile that didn't reach his eyes. You became mine the moment you stepped between me and that bullet, Eliza Reed. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for both of us. Before I could formulate a response, the door opened, and the mountain of a man from earlier stepped inside. Sir, he said respectfully, the arrangements are complete. The transport is ready whenever you give the word. Gabriel nodded, then turned back to me. Rest now. When you wake up, you'll be somewhere safe. He stood, adjusting his immaculate suit jacket. I'll bring Emma to you myself. You have my word that no harm will come to her. Despite everything, the danger, his high-handed approach, the fear coursing through me, I believed him on that point. Whatever else Gabriel Castellano might be, he would protect my daughter. As he turned to leave, I caught his sleeve weakly. Wait, you never really told me who you are. He looked down at my hand on his expensive suit, then back to my face, his expression unreadable. You'll find out soon enough. He hesitated, then leaned down, his lips close to my ear as he whispered, But know this, Eliza Reed. You've unwittingly saved the life of a very dangerous man, and now that man owes you everything. As he straightened up and walked away, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning. What had I gotten Emma and myself into? And more importantly, who exactly was Gabriel Castellano? The medication pulled me under before I could find answers, dragging me into darkness as a single thought echoed in my mind. I'd saved a stranger's life, but in doing so, I might have endangered my own, and my daughter's, forever. I woke to the sound of Emma's laughter, bright and musical, pulling me from a dreamless sleep. For one disorienting moment, I thought we were home, that everything, the shooting, the hospital, Gabriel Castellano, had been a nightmare my exhausted mind had concocted. Then the pain in my shoulder throbbed, sharp and insistent, and reality crashed back. I opened my eyes to unfamiliar surroundings. Gone was the sterile hospital room with its harsh lighting and antiseptic smell. Instead, I lay in an enormous bed with silken sheets and a plush comforter that seemed to cradle my battered body. The room around me was elegant and spacious, with cream-colored walls, tasteful artwork, and French doors that opened onto what appeared to be a private balcony. Sunshine streamed through sheer curtains, bathing everything in warm golden light. "Mommy," Emma's voice came again, followed by the pattering of small feet. She appeared in the doorway, her curly brown hair bouncing as she ran toward me, her face alight with excitement. "You're finally awake." She climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of my injury in that heartbreakingly considerate way she had, always trying to be grown up for me. I reached out with my good arm, pulling her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Relief crashed over me in a wave so intense it brought tears to my eyes. "I missed you so much, baby," I whispered into her hair, unwilling to let go despite the pain that flared in my shoulder. "I missed you too." She pulled back just enough to study my face with serious blue eyes so like her father's. "Mr. Gabriel said you were hurt saving someone, like a superhero." Her expression brightened. "Are you a superhero now, Mommy?" I managed a weak smile. "Not quite, sweetheart. Just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or the right place at the wrong time, depending on how you looked at it. Speaking of Mr. Gabriel, where exactly are we?" Emma bounced slightly on the bed, excitement overriding her usual caution. "It's a huge house, like a castle, with gardens and a swimming pool and a kitchen bigger than our whole apartment." She leaned in conspiratorially. "And Mr. Gabriel says I can use the pool whenever I want, as long as Lucia is watching." "Lucia? She takes care of me when you're sleeping." Emma's small face grew serious. "I was scared when you didn't wake up yesterday, but Mr. Gabriel said the medicine makes you sleep so you can heal faster." "Yesterday? How long had I been unconscious?" "Emma, how did we get here? What happened after the hospital?" Before she could answer, a soft knock came at the door, and a middle-aged woman with a kind face and silver-streaked dark hair entered, carrying a tray. She wore simple but expensive-looking black slacks and a cream blouse, with a silver pendant at her throat. "Ah, you're awake, Ms. Reed. Excellent." Her accent was similar to Gabriel's, subtle but present. Mediterranean, perhaps? "Emma, what did I say about letting your mother rest?" "But she woke up on her own," Emma protested, a hint of stubbornness in her voice that I recognized all too well. The woman's stern expression softened. "So she did. Still, it's time for your lesson with Dr. Harlow." When Emma's face fell, she added, "And perhaps afterward, if your mother is feeling up to it, you can show her the gardens." Emma brightened immediately. "Can I, Mommy? The gardens are so pretty with fountains and everything." I nodded, still trying to process the situation. "Of course, sweetheart. I'd love that." With a squeal of delight, Emma hugged me gently, then slid off the bed. "I'll be super good for Dr. Harlow so we can finish early." She darted out of the room with the boundless energy of childhood. "Dr. Harlow?" I asked, once she'd gone. "A tutor," the woman explained, setting the tray down on a nearby table. Mr. Castellano arranged for Emma's schooling to continue during your stay. She moved efficiently around the room, adjusting curtains and checking the pitcher of water on the nightstand. I'm Lucia Moretti, the housekeeper. I've been looking after your daughter since you arrived. How long has it been? I asked, struggling to sit up. Since the hospital? Lucia moved to help me, placing pillows behind my back with practiced ease. 3 days. The doctor gave you sedatives to help with the pain during transport. You've been drifting in and out of consciousness since then. She poured a glass of water from the pitcher. Emma has been very brave, though naturally concerned for her mother. I accepted the water gratefully, taking small sips as I tried to make sense of everything. Where exactly are we, Ms. Moretti? Please, call me Lucia. She smiled, the expression warming her serious face. You're at Mr. Castellano's estate outside the city. It's very private, very secure. She gestured to the tray she'd brought. I've prepared a light breakfast. You need to rebuild your strength. The tray held a bowl of fresh fruit, yogurt, toast, and a pot of what smelled like excellent coffee. My stomach growled audibly, reminding me how long it had been since I'd eaten. Thank you, I said sincerely, for the food and for looking after Emma. Lucia's expression softened. Emma is a delightful child, very well-mannered. You've done an excellent job with her, especially, she trailed off, seemingly uncomfortable. Especially as a single mother? I finished for her, used to that particular awkward pause. She inclined her head slightly. I meant no offense. None taken. It's just reality. I reached for a piece of toast, suddenly ravenous. Is Mr. Castellano here? I'd like to speak with him. He's attending to business in the city today, but will return this evening. Lucia moved toward the door. He asked to be informed immediately when you were properly awake. I'll let him know. After she left, I ate slowly, savoring the simple but perfectly prepared food while I took stock of my situation. I'd been moved from the hospital to what was apparently Gabriel Castellano's private estate while unconscious. Emma had been brought here as well, and seemed to be thriving, excited even about our new surroundings. A private tutor had been arranged for her education. A housekeeper was caring for her needs. All of this organized and paid for by a man I'd met only once. A man who'd said I was his because I'd pushed him out of the way of a bullet. A man who, according to his own words, had dangerous enemies who wouldn't hesitate to kill me and my daughter. After finishing most of the food, I carefully swung my legs over the side of the bed, testing my strength. I wore silk pajamas I'd definitely never seen before, the fabric sliding coolly against my skin as I moved. My injured shoulder was bandaged professionally, the pain present but manageable. Someone had bathed me while I was unconscious, a thought that made me uncomfortably vulnerable. I made my way to the ensuite bathroom, which was larger than my entire bedroom at home, all marble and glass with a shower that could have fit 3 people, and a soaking tub beneath a window overlooking manicured gardens. Again, I was struck by the surreal contrast to my normal life of cramped spaces, secondhand furniture, and constant financial anxiety. After using the facilities, I found a robe hanging on the bathroom door and slipped it on over the pajamas, needing the extra layer of coverage despite the warmth of the day. I felt exposed enough already, plucked from my life and placed in this gilded cage without my consent, even if it had supposedly been for my protection. The French doors leading to the balcony tempted me. Needing fresh air and a better sense of where exactly we were, I made my way across the room and pulled them open. The scent of roses and freshly cut grass greeted me as I stepped outside. The balcony overlooked extensive gardens that stretched toward a line of trees in the distance. Perfectly manicured lawns, flowering shrubs, stone pathways, and multiple fountains created a scene of almost unreal beauty. Beyond the gardens, I could see nothing but trees in all directions. No neighboring properties, no roads, nothing to indicate proximity to civilization. We were completely isolated. Movement below caught my eye. 2 men in dark suits walked a perimeter path along a high stone wall that appeared to surround the entire property. Even from a distance, I could see the telltale bulge of shoulder holsters beneath their jackets. Not gardeners, then. Security, or guards, depending on how you looked at it. The enormity of my situation finally hit me fully. I was recovering from a gunshot wound in the secluded estate of a man I barely knew, a man with armed security and enemies willing to kill, a man who had effectively taken control of both my life and my daughter's with breathtaking efficiency and without any real permission from me. I gripped the balcony railing, suddenly dizzy. You shouldn't be out of bed yet. The deep voice startled me so badly I nearly lost my balance. I turned to find Gabriel Castellano standing in the doorway to the bedroom, watching me with an unreadable expression. He'd ditched the formal suit for dark trousers and a crisp white shirt, with the sleeves rolled up to reveal muscular forearms. The more casual attire did nothing to diminish his aura of controlled power. "Lucia said you'd gone to the city," I managed, hating how breathless I sounded. "I returned when she informed me you were awake." He crossed to join me on the balcony, moving with that same predatory grace I'd noticed in the convenience store. "How are you feeling?" "Confused," I answered honestly. "Overwhelmed. A little angry, to be frank." His eyebrow arched slightly. "Angry? You kidnapped me and my daughter." A flash of genuine surprise crossed his face. "I arranged for your protection, without my consent, while I was unconscious." I turned back to the view, unable to maintain eye contact with his intense gaze. "That's kidnapping where I come from." Gabriel was silent for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, he chuckled. "You're either very brave or very foolish to speak to me like that, Eliza Reed." "Probably a bit of both," I admitted. "But being shot tends to put things in perspective." He moved to stand beside me at the railing, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I had two choices after you took that bullet. I could leave you in that public hospital, unprotected and exposed to the men who want me dead, or I could bring you somewhere safe, somewhere I could ensure no harm would come to you or your daughter." His voice hardened slightly. "It wasn't a difficult decision. Put like that, it was hard to maintain my indignation. Still, I couldn't quite let it go. You could have asked. You were unconscious. You could have waited until I wasn't. Every hour you remained in that hospital increased the risk." He turned to face me fully. "I don't leave things I value vulnerable, Eliza." There it was again, that possessive tone that should have offended me, but instead sent a complicated shiver down my spine. I changed the subject. "Emma seems to be adjusting well." His expression softened at the mention of my daughter. "She's a remarkable child. Intelligent, curious, resilient. She takes after her father that way," I said without thinking, then immediately regretted the words. Gabriel's eyes sharpened with interest. "Her father isn't mentioned in any of your records." The casual admission that he'd investigated my personal records should have alarmed me more than it did. "That's because he isn't in our lives," I said shortly, not wanting to discuss Daniel and his betrayal with this stranger. "He abandoned his child?" There was something dangerous in Gabriel's tone now. "It's complicated," I hedged, "and not relevant to our current situation." Gabriel studied me for a long moment, and I had the distinct impression he was filing away my reluctance to discuss Emma's father for future reference. "Perhaps not," he conceded, "though I find it difficult to imagine a man walking away from his own child. And from you." The unexpected compliment caught me off guard. "You don't know me well enough to make that judgment." "I know you better than you think," he countered, his voice dropping lower. "I know you work 2 jobs to support your daughter. I know you never miss a payment on your modest apartment, even when it means going without things for yourself. I know you volunteer at Emma's school despite your exhausting schedule." His eyes held mine. "I know you didn't hesitate to put yourself between a bullet and a complete stranger." Each statement felt like a physical touch, leaving me unsettled and exposed. "You've been investigating me. Thoroughly," he confirmed without a hint of apology. "I make it a point to know everything about people who enter my life, especially under such unusual circumstances." "Is that what I've done? Entered your life?" I wrapped my arms around myself despite the warmth of the day, suddenly feeling the need for an additional barrier between us. Gabriel's smile was slow and deliberate. "You altered the course of my life the moment you pushed me aside in that store. Now our paths are irreversibly intertwined." The way he said it, like a foregone conclusion, an immutable fact, made my heart race. "Only until the danger passes," I reminded him, and myself. Then Emma and I returned to our normal lives. Something flashed in his eyes, too quick to identify. "Of course," he agreed smoothly, "though I suspect your definition of normal may shift after this experience." Before I could ask what he meant, a wave of dizziness hit me, making me sway slightly. Gabriel's hand shot out to steady me, his fingers wrapping firmly around my uninjured arm. The contact sent an electric current through me that had nothing to do with my physical weakness. "You've overexerted yourself," he said, frowning. "You should be resting." "I'm fine," I protested weakly, though in truth, my legs felt increasingly unsteady beneath me. Gabriel made a dismissive sound. Then before I could react, he swept me into his arms with insulting ease, careful of my injured shoulder. I gasped at the sudden proximity to him, at the strength in the arms that held me as if I weighed nothing. "Put me down," I demanded, though it came out embarrassingly breathy. "I can walk." "Clearly you can't," he replied dryly, carrying me back into the bedroom and placing me gently on the bed. "The doctor warned that you'd be weak for several days. You lost a considerable amount of blood." I sank into the pillows, hating how good it felt to be horizontal again. "Speaking of doctors, I'm guessing the one who's been treating me isn't exactly hospital staff. Dr. Reeves is my personal physician." Gabriel straightened, adjusting his shirt cuffs. "He's one of the best trauma surgeons on the East Coast. You're fortunate to have him overseeing your recovery. Of course, Gabriel Castellano would have a personal physician on call." I was beginning to suspect that businessman was a significant understatement of his occupation and influence. "When can I see Emma again?" I asked, changing the subject. "She'll be finished with her lessons soon. I'll have Lucia bring her up." He moved toward the door. "In the meantime, rest. We'll talk more over dinner." "Dinner?" He paused, glancing back. "Yes. I'd like you to join me, assuming you feel well enough. We have matters to discuss." The way he phrased it, not an invitation but a statement, rubbed against my already frayed nerves. "And if I don't feel well enough?" Gabriel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then we'll postpone until tomorrow. But the conversation needs to happen, Eliza. There are things you need to understand about your situation." A chill ran through me at his tone. "What things?" "Later," he said firmly. "After you've rested and spent some time with your daughter." He left before I could press further, closing the door quietly behind him. I stared at the ceiling, trying to process everything. The luxury surrounding me, the armed men patrolling the grounds, Gabriel's cryptic warnings and possessive attitude. None of it fit into the reality I knew. Who exactly had I saved in that convenience store? And what kind of world had I stumbled into? Emma's visit that afternoon was both a joy and a concerning revelation. My normally cautious daughter had apparently blossomed in this strange environment. She chattered excitedly about her tutor. "He knows everything, Mommy, even more than Ms. Wilson. The gardens, the library filled with books, and most concerning of all, about Mr. Gabriel. He got me new art supplies, the really good kind," she told me as we sat in a secluded corner of the gardens, me wrapped in a cashmere throw despite the pleasant temperature. "And books about stars because I told him I want to be an astronaut." I tried to keep my expression neutral. "That was nice of him." Emma nodded enthusiastically. "And he showed me how to play chess. He says I'm a natural strategist." She pronounced the word carefully, clearly repeating something she'd heard. "That means I'm good at planning ahead." The image of my 7-year-old daughter playing chess with the intimidating Gabriel Castellano was both bizarre and somehow unsettling. "You've spent a lot of time with Mr. Gabriel then." "Mostly at dinner," she said, plucking a daisy from the grass beside our bench. "He asks me lots of questions about school and my friends and what books I like." Her small brow furrowed. "He asked about Daddy, too." My blood ran cold. "What did he ask? What did you tell him?" Emma shrugged, her attention on the flower she was methodically deconstructing, petal by petal. "Just if I remembered him." I said not really. She glanced up at me. "Is that bad?" "No, sweetheart, that's fine." I smoothed her curls, trying to hide my unease. "It's just private, family business." "That's what Mr. Gabriel said, too." She brightened. "He said sometimes families are just a mommy and a little girl, and that's perfectly okay." Despite my misgivings about Gabriel, I felt a reluctant appreciation for how he'd handled that particular conversation with my daughter. "He's right about that." Emma twirled the denuded flower stem between her fingers. "Mommy, is Mr. Gabriel a prince?" The question was so unexpected I laughed. "What? No, sweetheart. Why would you think that?" "Because he lives in a castle and has guards and everyone does what he says right away." She looked around at the manicured gardens, the patrolling security. "And he rescued us, like in my storybooks." I tensed at her choice of words. "Emma, he didn't rescue us. We're just staying here for a little while because it's safe." "Safe from the bad men?" My heart sank. "What bad men, Emma?" Her expression turned serious. "The ones who hurt you. Mr. Gabriel said there are some bad men who might try to hurt us, but that no one can get past his guards, so we don't have to be scared." I made a mental note to have a very serious conversation with Gabriel Castellano about what was and wasn't appropriate to discuss with my child. "You don't need to worry about any of that, baby. Everything's going to be fine." Emma nodded, apparently satisfied with this assurance. "I know. Mr. Gabriel promised. He said he'd never let anyone hurt his girls." His girls. The possessive phrase, innocent from my daughter's lips, sent a jolt of alarm through me. What exactly was Gabriel telling Emma while I'd been unconscious and recovering? "Sweetheart," I said carefully, "we're not his girls. We're just guests here for a little while." Emma looked confused, but he said, "Emma," Lucia's voice called from further down the garden path. "Time to come in for your snack before afternoon lessons." My daughter jumped up, momentarily distracted from our conversation. "Coming," she turned back to me. "Will you be at dinner tonight, Mommy? Mr. Gabriel said maybe you would if you felt better." "I'll try, sweetheart," I forced a smile. "Now go on with Lucia. I'll see you soon." I watched her skip away, her earlier words echoing in my mind. His girls. The phrase lodged in my chest like a splinter, impossible to ignore. I'd gone from being a fiercely independent single mother, working 2 jobs to provide for my daughter, to being considered the possession of a man who seemed to command a small army of security personnel, a man who had moved us into his home, arranged for my medical care, my daughter's education, who was apparently forming a bond with Emma while I'd been incapacitated, a man who had enemies willing to kill to get to him. And tonight, apparently, I would be having dinner with him to discuss my situation. I pulled the cashmere throw tighter around my shoulders, suddenly chilled despite the afternoon sunshine. Whatever Gabriel Castellano wanted to tell me, I had a feeling it would change everything. Again. Lucia arrived at my room that evening with a selection of dresses laid across her arms. "Mr. Castellano thought you might want something suitable for dinner," she explained, carefully laying them out on the bed. I stared at the elegant garments, a simple black sheath dress, a deep blue wrap dress, and an emerald green silk that looked like it cost more than my monthly rent. "These aren't mine." "No," Lucia agreed, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from the blue dress. "They were purchased for you, along with the items in the closet." She nodded toward a door I hadn't yet opened. I crossed the room and pulled it open to find a walk-in closet filled with clothing, casual wear, formal attire, sleepwear, shoes, even undergarments still with tags attached, all in my size. When I began, then stopped, remembering I'd been unconscious for 3 days. How did he know my size? Lucia's expression remained professionally neutral. "Mr. Castellano is thorough." That seemed to be the explanation for everything. Mr. Castellano was thorough. Mr. Castellano arranged everything. Mr. Castellano knew best. It was beginning to grate on my already frayed nerves. "I'm not wearing any of this," I decided, closing the closet door firmly. "I'll wear what I came in with. Your clothing was damaged, Ms. Reed, from the shooting." Lucia's voice softened slightly. There was a considerable amount of blood. Of course there was. I'd been shot. My favorite blue blouse probably looked like a crime scene exhibit now. I sighed, defeated. "Fine. The blue one, I guess." Lucia nodded approvingly. "An excellent choice. Would you like assistance preparing? With your injury, bathing might be difficult." The thought of needing help to bathe, like an invalid or a child, made me bristle. "I can manage. As you wish." She laid out the blue dress on the bed along with matching underwear, then moved to the bathroom to start the shower. "I'll leave you to it then. Dinner will be served at 7 in the small dining room. I'll come to escort you." After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dress. The fact that Gabriel Castellano had arranged for an entire wardrobe to be purchased for me in exactly my size felt like yet another boundary crossed, another aspect of my life he'd taken control of without permission. Yet what choice did I have? I couldn't very well go to dinner in the silk pajamas I'd been wearing since I woke. The shower proved more challenging than I'd anticipated. My injured shoulder protested at every movement, and washing my hair one-handed was nearly impossible. By the time I emerged, I was exhausted and irritable, my shoulder throbbing despite the pain medication Dr. Reeves had prescribed. Dressing was equally difficult. The wrap dress, while easier than most styles, still required dexterity I currently lacked. After several frustrated attempts, I was finally presentable, though the effort had left me drained. I examined myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman who stared back looked like a stranger, pale and drawn, with shadows under her eyes, and a vulnerability I wasn't accustomed to seeing in my own reflection. The blue dress complemented my fair skin and dark hair, making me look more elegant than I had any right to after taking a bullet 4 days ago. At precisely 7, Lucia knocked and entered, nodding approvingly at my appearance. "You look lovely, Ms. Reed. Are you feeling strong enough to walk to the dining room?" My pride wanted to say yes, but practicality won out. "I might need to take it slowly." "Of course." She offered her arm for support with surprising strength for her slight frame. The journey through the mansion, because that's what it was, a true mansion, revealed the full scale of Gabriel Castellanos' wealth. Marble floors, priceless artwork, antique furniture that probably belonged in museums, all displayed with tasteful restraint rather than ostentatious showing. Old money, I thought, not nouveau riche. This wasn't the home of someone who'd recently acquired wealth. It was the domain of someone born to it, who took it for granted. We descended a sweeping staircase and followed a long hallway before Lucia paused outside a set of double doors. "The small dining room," she announced, knocking once before opening them. Small was a relative term, apparently. The room could have comfortably seated 12, though only 2 place settings graced the elegant table. One end was occupied by Gabriel Castellano, who rose immediately as I entered. He'd changed into a dark suit that looked custom-tailored to his powerful frame, making me suddenly conscious of how underdressed I felt, despite the expensive dress. "Eliza," he greeted me, his gaze traveling over me in a slow assessment that made my skin tingle. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," I replied stiffly, allowing Lucia to guide me to the chair opposite his. "Where's Emma?" "She had dinner earlier. She's with her tutor for an evening astronomy session." Gabriel resumed his seat as Lucia helped me into mine. Dr. Harlow mentioned she has an exceptional interest in space. He thought she might enjoy viewing the stars through the telescope in the observatory. Of course, the mansion had an observatory. Why wouldn't it? "She does love astronomy," I acknowledged, unable to fault him for identifying and nurturing my daughter's passion. "Her father used to—" I stopped myself, unwilling to share those memories. Gabriel's eyes sharpened at the mention of Emma's father, but he didn't press. Instead, he nodded to Lucia, who departed silently, closing the doors behind her. "Wine?" he offered, reaching for a crystal decanter. "I probably shouldn't, with the medication." "Ah, of course." He set the decanter down and picked up a bell, ringing it once. Almost immediately, a door at the side of the room opened, and a uniformed server appeared. "Water for Ms. Reed, please, and we'll begin with the first course." The server nodded and disappeared as silently as he'd appeared. "You rang an actual bell for service," I observed, unable to keep the incredulity from my voice. I didn't think people actually did that outside of period dramas. A hint of amusement crossed Gabriel's face. "Some traditions are worth maintaining." He studied me across the table. "How are you feeling?" "Better," I admitted reluctantly, though the shower was a challenge. "You should have accepted Lucia's help." "I'm not an invalid." "No, you're a woman recovering from a gunshot wound." His tone was mild but firm. "There's no shame in accepting assistance when needed." Before I could form a retort, the server returned with my water and the first course, an exquisite salad featuring ingredients I couldn't identify arranged like a work of art on bone china plates. It looked too beautiful to eat. "You're wondering why I asked you to join me tonight," Gabriel said, picking up his fork. Among other things, I followed his lead, taking a small bite of the salad. The explosion of flavors, sweet, tart, savory, momentarily distracted me from our conversation. "I believe it's time you understood exactly what happened at that convenience store, and what it means for you and your daughter moving forward." The seriousness of his tone recaptured my full attention. "I'm listening." Gabriel took a sip of his wine, seemingly gathering his thoughts. "The man who shot you wasn't a random criminal. As I mentioned before, he was sent by a rival, business associate, a man named Victor Kozlov." "What kind of business associate sends gunmen after his rivals?" I asked, though I was beginning to suspect I already knew the answer. Gabriel's smile was cold. "The kind who operates outside the law." "You're a criminal." I set my fork down, appetite suddenly gone. "I prefer to think of myself as an entrepreneur working in unregulated markets." His casual tone couldn't disguise the dangerous edge underneath. "But yes, by legal definitions, certain aspects of my business empire would be considered criminal enterprises." The blunt admission stunned me into momentary silence. I'd suspected something along these lines, given the armed security and talk of enemies, but hearing him confirm it was another matter entirely. "You're a mafia boss," I whispered, the pieces finally clicking into place. "That's why you have all this security, why someone tried to kill you." Organized crime is an outdated term, but essentially correct. Gabriel continued eating as if we were discussing the weather rather than his criminal empire. "My family has controlled certain interests on the East Coast for 3 generations. My mind reeled, trying to process the implications. I'd taken a bullet meant for a mafia don. I was currently dining in the heavily guarded estate of one of the most dangerous men in the country, and my 7-year-old daughter Was upstairs learning about stars, with a tutor hired by this same man. I want to leave, I said abruptly, pushing my chair back from the table. Emma and I need to go. Now. Gabriel didn't move, didn't raise his voice, but somehow his presence seemed to expand, filling the room. You can't leave, Eliza. Not yet. You can't keep us here against our will. I'm not keeping you here against your will. I'm keeping you alive. His voice hardened. Viktor Kozlov now knows who you are. His men have been watching the hospital, your apartment, Emma's school. If you leave this estate, you'll be dead within 24 hours. And then they'll kill your daughter too. The clinical way he described our potential murder made my blood run cold. You don't know that for certain. I do. His eyes held mine, unflinching. Kozlov doesn't leave loose ends, and you've become a significant one. You witnessed his failed assassination attempt. Worse, you interfered with it. In his world, that makes you an enemy to be eliminated. I'm nobody, I protested. Just a waitress who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You stopped being nobody the moment you saved my life. Gabriel set his wineglass down with deliberate care. There are now only two possible futures for you, Eliza Reed. Either you remain under my protection, or you die at Kozlov's hands. Those are your options. The stark reality of his words hit me like a physical blow. For how long? I whispered. Until I eliminate the threat. And how long will that take? Gabriel's expression darkened. Kozlov has significant resources and connections. Dismantling his operation without triggering a full-scale war will take time. Months, at minimum. Months? I echoed, horrified. I can't stay here for months. I have a life, jobs, responsibilities, all of which mean nothing if you're dead, he interrupted coldly. This isn't a negotiation, Eliza. It's simply reality. I stared at him, momentarily speechless with rage and fear. So that's it? Emma and I are just supposed to put our lives on hold indefinitely while you wage your criminal war? Your lives aren't on hold. They're continuing, just in a different environment. He gestured to our surroundings. An environment with considerably more advantages than your previous situation, I might add. Advantages like what? Being prisoners in a gilded cage? Having armed guards watching our every move? Advantages like financial security, the best education for your daughter, access to opportunities she would never have had otherwise. His gaze intensified. You've been working yourself to exhaustion for years, Eliza, barely keeping your head above water. Here you can finally rest, heal. Focus on Emma rather than on survival. His words hit uncomfortably close to home. I had been exhausted, stretched to my breaking point trying to provide for Emma while keeping us afloat. The past few days, despite the pain and confusion, had been the first time in years I hadn't had to worry about bills, rent, or whether I could afford new shoes for Emma's growing feet. But at what cost? What happens when it's over? I asked, my voice barely audible. If you eliminate the threat, what then? Something flickered in Gabriel's eyes, too quick to identify. Then, you'll be free to make your choice. What choice? Whether to return to your previous life, or to accept a new one. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine in a touch so light, I could almost believe I'd imagined it. But that's a conversation for another time. For now, all that matters is keeping you and Emma safe. The server returned with the second course, breaking the moment of tension between us. I withdrew my hand, unsettled by the brief contact and everything it implied. You're upset, Gabriel observed after the server had departed again. Wouldn't you be? I countered. I've just learned I'm essentially a prisoner because I had the misfortune of saving the life of a criminal kingpin. His jaw tightened at my words. Your characterization is unfair. You're not a prisoner. You're a protected guest. And I'm not merely a criminal kingpin, as you so reductively put it. What would you call it then? I'm a businessman who operates in certain gray areas of the law, but I also own legitimate enterprises, real estate, shipping companies, technology firms. I employ thousands of people, contribute to charitable foundations, and yes, occasionally engage in activities the government frowns upon. He spread his hands. The world isn't black and white, Eliza. Murder is pretty black and white, I retorted. Is it? You'd kill to protect Emma without hesitation. His eyes narrowed slightly. In fact, you nearly died protecting a complete stranger. Where is the line between justified and unjustified violence? Who draws it? I had no ready answer for his philosophical question, which irritated me further. This isn't a debate club, Gabriel. This is my life, and my daughter's life, you've taken control of. To save it, he reminded me. Something you seem determined to forget. The second course, some kind of delicate fish I couldn't identify, sat untouched before me as I struggled with conflicting emotions. On the one hand, Gabriel Castellano was a self-admitted criminal, potentially responsible for terrible acts. On the other hand, he had indeed saved Emma and me from what he claimed was certain death, providing us with safety, comfort, and care beyond anything I could have afforded. Why? I finally asked, looking up to meet his intense gaze. Why go to all this trouble for a woman you don't even know? There must be easier ways to repay a debt. Gabriel was silent for a long moment, studying me with an expression I couldn't interpret. There's something you should understand about men in my position, Eliza. We rarely experience genuine selflessness. People act in their own interest around us, out of fear, greed, or ambition. They calculate every move, every word, weighing potential benefits against risks. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping lower. But you acted without calculation, without knowledge of who I was or what I could do for you. You risked your life for a stranger, asking nothing in return. His eyes held mine, burning with an intensity that made my breath catch. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? The raw emotion in his voice caught me off guard. For the first time, I glimpsed something beneath the controlled exterior, a flicker of vulnerability perhaps, or loneliness. I told you it was just instinct, I said, uncomfortable with his perception of me as some kind of selfless heroine. I'm not special, but you are. His certainty was unsettling. You proved it with a single action, and now you've captured my interest in a way few ever have. The way he said it, like a predator acknowledging worthy prey, sent a shiver down my spine that wasn't entirely fear. There was something else in his gaze, something that made my pulse quicken, and my skin warm, despite my better judgment. Interest isn't ownership, I reminded him, trying to regain my equilibrium. His smile was slow and knowing, as if he could sense my conflicted reaction to him. No, but it is the beginning of something, wouldn't you say? Before I could respond, the doors opened, and Emma burst in, her face alight with excitement. Dr. Harlow, a distinguished-looking man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, followed behind her with an apologetic expression. "Mommy, Mr. Gabriel, I saw Jupiter's moons," she exclaimed, rushing to my side. 4 of them. They looked like tiny stars. Relief at the interruption washed over me. That's wonderful, sweetheart. My apologies for the interruption, Dr. Harlow said, addressing Gabriel. She was quite insistent on sharing her discovery immediately. To my surprise, Gabriel didn't seem annoyed by the intrusion. Instead, his expression softened as he looked at Emma. No apology necessary, doctor. Discoveries like that should be shared without delay. Emma beamed at his approval, then turned back to me. Can I show you the observatory, Mommy? It has a huge telescope that can see all the way to Saturn. Perhaps tomorrow, little one, Gabriel suggested gently before I could respond. Your mother still needs to rest and recover her strength. Emma's face fell slightly, but she nodded. Okay, tomorrow. The easy way Gabriel managed my daughter's expectations, and the way Emma accepted his authority, unsettled me. In just a few days, he'd apparently established himself as a figure to be respected and obeyed in her young mind. I think it's time for bed now, Emma, I said, reclaiming my parental role. Say goodnight to Mr. Gabriel and Dr. Harlow. Emma dutifully wished them both good night, then surprised me by approaching Gabriel and offering her small hand with solemn formality. He took it gravely, shaking it as if they were concluding a business deal. Thank you for showing me the stars, she said. It was my pleasure. His smile transformed his face, softening the hard edges and making him momentarily approachable. Perhaps next time we can look for the constellations your father taught you about. I froze at the casual mention, a chill running through me. I'd never told Gabriel that Daniel had been the one to introduce Emma to astronomy, which meant Emma had shared that particular detail with him during one of their conversations. How much else had my daughter innocently revealed about our past? I forced a smile. Lucia, could you please take Emma to her room? I'll be up shortly to tuck her in. After they departed, I turned to Gabriel, unable to hide my displeasure. You've been questioning my daughter about her father. His expression remained impassive. She mentioned him unprompted. I merely listened. I don't want you discussing him with her. Why? Because he abandoned you both? Because he stole from you before he left? Shock rendered me momentarily speechless. I hadn't told anyone the full story of Daniel's betrayal. Not my friends, not my family, certainly not Gabriel Castellano. How did you— As I said, I'm thorough. His tone was matter-of-fact, unapologetic. Daniel Barrett, software developer. Left when Emma was 2. Emptied your joint savings account before disappearing. Currently living in Seattle with his new wife and their infant son. Each detail felt like a physical blow. I hadn't known Daniel had remarried, had another child. I'd deliberately avoided seeking information about him after he left, focusing instead on rebuilding our shattered lives. You had no right, I whispered, hands trembling with anger. I have every right to know about the man who abandoned my— He stopped abruptly, then amended, to know about Emma's father. The slip was revealing. My daughter. He'd been about to say my daughter, as if he had some claim to her. The possessiveness I'd sensed earlier wasn't just directed at me, it extended to Emma as well. I'd like to return to my room now, I said, standing despite the pain that lanced through my shoulder at the sudden movement. I need to say goodnight to my daughter. Gabriel rose as well, his expression unreadable once more. Of course. We can continue our conversation another time. I think we've said all that needs to be said. I moved toward the door, determined to maintain what little independence I had left. Not quite. His voice stopped me before I reached the exit. There's the matter of your recovery, your financial situation, and Emma's future education to discuss. I turned back, frowning. What about them? Your injury will take weeks to heal completely. During that time, you'll need physical therapy, proper nutrition, rest, all of which will be provided here. His tone made it clear this wasn't open for discussion. As for your financial concerns, I've taken the liberty of settling your outstanding debts and arranging for your apartment to be maintained in your absence. You did what? I stared at him, incredulous. It seemed the most practical solution. He spoke as if paying off a stranger's debts was a perfectly normal thing to do. Additionally, I've established a trust fund for Emma's education. Whatever path she chooses, college, graduate studies, technical training, the resources will be available to her. My head spun with the implications. In a few sentences, he'd eliminated the financial burdens that had weighed on me for years and secured my daughter's future in a way I never could have managed on my own. Why? I asked again, genuinely bewildered by his generosity. Gabriel approached slowly, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Because I can. Because it pleases me to do so. His voice lowered. And because you and Emma are now under my protection in every sense of the word. I take care of what's mine, Eliza. We're not yours, I insisted, though the words lacked conviction even to my own ears. His smile was knowing. Aren't you? You live in my home. You wear clothes I provided. Your daughter learns from tutors I hired. Your debts have been settled with my money. Your future security depends on my protection. He reached out, his fingers lightly tracing the curve of my jaw in a touch so gentle it was barely perceptible. If not mine, then whose are you? I had no answer that didn't sound hollow. The truth was, Gabriel Castellano had systematically inserted himself into every aspect of our lives with a thoroughness that left no room for denial. In just a few days, he'd made himself indispensable to our survival and comfort, and some traitorous part of me didn't entirely hate it. I need to say goodnight to Emma, I repeated, stepping back from his touch. He allowed me to retreat, but his eyes told me he was merely granting a temporary reprieve. We'll speak again tomorrow. Rest well, Eliza. As I made my way upstairs to Emma's room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was balanced on a precipice, about to fall into something I couldn't control or escape. Gabriel Castellano had saved us from a threat he claimed would have killed us, only to ensnare us in a different kind of danger, one more seductive and perhaps even more inescapable. Because despite everything, his criminal activities, his high-handedness, his unsettling possessiveness, I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward him, the way my skin tingled when he was near, the way my heart raced when his eyes met mine. I was attracted to the very man who'd upended our lives, and that realization terrified me more than any external threat ever could. Morning sunlight streamed through the French doors, painting warm stripes across the bed as I slowly awakened. For a moment, I simply lay there, cataloging the dull ache in my shoulder, the softness of the sheets against my skin, the distant sounds of activity somewhere in the vast mansion. A week had passed since my dinner with Gabriel, a week of gradual healing, of cautious exploration of my gilded prison, and of watching with conflicted emotions as Emma blossomed in her new environment. She'd taken to her lessons with Dr. Harlow with enthusiasm I'd never seen her show for regular school, her natural intelligence flourishing under his personalized attention. She spent hours in the gardens, the library, the observatory, soaking up experiences and knowledge with the resilience of childhood, and she spent time with Gabriel. That was what unsettled me most. The easy rapport developing between my daughter and the man who'd inserted himself so completely into our lives. She spoke of him constantly, recounting their chess matches, the stories he told her, the way he listened to her chatter about stars and planets with genuine interest. Mr. Gabriel says I could be an astronaut if I study hard, she'd told me yesterday, eyes shining with possibility. He says he knows people at NASA. Of course he did. Gabriel Castellano seemed to know people everywhere. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities. His influence extended into corners of society I'd never imagined existed, let alone thought I'd brush against. A knock at my door interrupted my reflections. "Come in," I called, sitting up against the pillows. Lucia entered, carrying the now familiar breakfast tray. "Good morning, Ms. Reed. How are you feeling today?" "Better," I admitted. It was true. Each day brought noticeable improvement. Dr. Reeves, Gabriel's personal physician, seemed pleased with my progress during his regular visits. "Excellent." Lucia set the tray down and moved to open the curtains wider. "Mr. Castellano asked me to inform you that he'll be away on business until this evening. He hopes you'll join him for dinner upon his return." I reached for the coffee, welcoming its rich aroma. "Does he now?" Lucia's expression remained professionally neutral, though I detected a hint of amusement in her eyes. She'd witnessed enough of my prickly interactions with Gabriel over the past week to understand the complexity of our relationship, if it could even be called that. "Also," she continued, "Dr. Reeves will be here at 10 for your checkup, and your first physical therapy session is scheduled for 11 with Mrs. Santos." I nodded, sipping my coffee. The physical therapy was Gabriel's latest addition to my recovery regimen, arranged without consultation but undeniably necessary if I wanted to regain full use of my arm. Like everything else he provided, it was top tier, a specialist who typically treated professional athletes, now dedicated to my rehabilitation. "And Emma?" I asked. "Already at breakfast with Dr. Harlow. They're discussing marine biology today. She was quite excited about it. After Lucia departed, I ate slowly, considering my options for the day. With Gabriel absent, I felt a subtle release of tension, a freedom to explore without his intense scrutiny. Despite my initial fears, I'd discovered I wasn't actually confined to my room, or even to the house. I could wander the extensive grounds freely, though always aware of the security personnel maintaining a discreet distance. The only boundary was the perimeter wall, beyond which lay a world now apparently lethal to me and my daughter. After breakfast, I showered and dressed in some of the casual clothing that filled my closet, soft jeans and a loose blouse that accommodated my injury. I still felt uncomfortable in these garments purchased without my input, but I'd reluctantly acknowledged their practicality. Dr. Reeves arrived precisely at 10, his examination brisk but thorough. "The wound is healing nicely," he pronounced, replacing my bandage with practiced efficiency. "Another week, and we can consider removing the stitches." He fixed me with a stern look. "You need to be diligent with the physical therapy, Ms. Reed. Shoulder injuries can lead to long-term mobility issues if not properly rehabilitated." "I understand." "Good." He packed up his medical bag. "Mr. Castellano is very concerned about your complete recovery." I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Of course, Gabriel had stressed the importance of my rehabilitation to his staff. His investment needed to be properly maintained, after all. The physical therapy session that followed was both painful and exhausting. Ms. Santos, a petite woman with the deceptive strength of a professional athlete, guided me through exercises that left me trembling and sweating, despite their apparent simplicity. "Excellent work," she said as we finished, seemingly oblivious to my discomfort. "We'll gradually increase the difficulty as your strength returns." Lunch was a solitary affair on the terrace overlooking the gardens. Emma was still engrossed in her marine biology lesson, apparently dissecting a squid under Dr. Harlow's supervision, an educational opportunity she'd never have had in her public school. As I picked at my salad, I spotted movement at the edge of the property, a black SUV passing through the heavily guarded gates. It wasn't Gabriel's usual vehicle, which piqued my curiosity. After a moment, the SUV stopped near the garage area, and several men emerged, their postures alert and professional. More security, perhaps? But then a woman stepped out, her elegant figure unmistakable even at a distance. Tall, slender, dressed in what appeared to be an expensive suit, with dark hair swept into a sleek chignon. She moved with confidence as she was escorted toward the house by two of Gabriel's regular security team. A visitor? In the week we'd been here, no one had come to the estate except staff and Gabriel's men. The appearance of this unknown woman stirred both curiosity and unease in me. I finished my lunch quickly and made my way back inside, intending to return to my room. As I crossed the main foyer, however, voices drifted from the direction of Gabriel's study, one of the few rooms in the mansion I'd been tacitly discouraged from entering. Cannot continue to ignore the implications, Gabriel. A woman's voice, cultured and authoritative. The council expects a resolution. The council can expect whatever they wish. I'll handle Kozlov my way. Gabriel's voice, recognizable even through the partially closed door. I knew I should keep walking, return to my room and mind my own business. But curiosity, that same impulsive quality that had led me to push Gabriel out of the way of a bullet, kept me rooted to the spot. Your way has already resulted in a civilian casualty, the woman countered. A single mother, no less. Do you have any idea how this looks? She's not a casualty, Sophia. She's recovering well. That's hardly the point. Your attachment to this woman is clouding your judgment. Kozlov knows it. The council knows it. It's a vulnerability you can't afford. My breath caught. They were discussing me. The mysterious Sophia clearly knew who I was, and considered me a complication in whatever business Gabriel was conducting. My judgment is perfectly clear, Gabriel replied, his tone hardening. And my personal affairs are not subject to council oversight. They are when they intersect with family business. Sophia's voice grew sharper. You've brought a complete stranger and her child into our inner sanctum, Gabriel. A woman with no connections, no understanding of our world, who could expose us all if things go badly. Eliza Reed is under my protection. That should be sufficient for everyone concerned. It isn't. Not anymore. A pause. There are rumors, Gabriel. People are saying you've become infatuated, that you're considering bringing them into the family permanently. Family? The word struck me like a physical blow. What exactly was Gabriel planning? What I'm considering is not up for debate, sister. Sister. So this Sophia was Gabriel's sibling. The revelation added another layer to the complex picture forming in my mind. It is when it affects all of us. Father would never have allowed. Father is dead, Gabriel interrupted coldly, and I'm the head of this family now. I decide what is allowed. The tension in his voice was palpable even through the door. I took an involuntary step backward, bumping into a side table and sending a small decorative bowl clattering to the marble floor. Silence fell instantly inside the study. Then footsteps approached the door, which swung open to reveal Gabriel, his expression shifting from irritation to surprise as he saw me standing there. Eliza, he said, recovering quickly. I thought you were resting. I was just heading back to my room, I replied, heat rising to my cheeks at being caught eavesdropping. I'm sorry about the bowl. I bent to retrieve it, wincing as my shoulder protested. Leave it, Gabriel ordered, then softened his tone. The staff will take care of it. Behind him, a striking woman appeared in the doorway. Up close, Sofia Castellano was even more intimidating, tall and elegant, with the same dark eyes as her brother, but a colder, more calculating gaze. She assessed me with clinical detachment, taking in my casual clothes, my bandaged shoulder, my evident discomfort. So this is her, she said, not bothering to hide her disapproval, the waitress who's caused such a stir. The dismissive tone stung more than it should have. I straightened, meeting her gaze directly. And you must be the sister who's so concerned about the family reputation. Sophia's eyebrows rose slightly, surprise flickering across her perfect features. She has spirit, at least, she commented to Gabriel, though perhaps not enough sense to know when she's out of her depth. Sophia, Gabriel warned, his voice dropping dangerously. His sister ignored him, stepping forward to circle me slowly, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Tell me, Ms. Reed, do you have any idea what you've stumbled into? Any concept of the world you're now peripheral to? Enough to know it's dangerous, I replied, refusing to be intimidated despite the anxiety coiling in my stomach, and that your brother believes my daughter and I would be killed if we left this estate. Sophia's laugh was devoid of humor. On that point, at least, we agree. Viktor Kozlov is not known for his mercy. She stopped directly in front of me. The question is whether the protection my brother offers is worth the price you'll eventually have to pay. Enough, Sophia, Gabriel said sharply, moving to stand between us. You've made your concerns clear. Now leave us. For a moment I thought she might refuse. The siblings stared at each other, some unspoken communication passing between them, before Sophia finally inclined her head in a gesture that wasn't quite submission. We'll continue our discussion later, she said to Gabriel, then turned back to me. It was illuminating to meet you, Ms. Reed. I suspect we'll be seeing more of each other, whether I approve or not. After she'd departed, escorted by one of Gabriel's men, an uncomfortable silence descended. I was acutely aware of having overheard a private conversation, of having gained insights into Gabriel's world that he might not have willingly shared. I apologize for my sister, he finally said, guiding me toward a nearby sitting room rather than back to his study. Sophia can be protective of family interests. She doesn't approve of me being here. I stated the obvious as I sank onto a velvet sofa, suddenly exhausted by the confrontation. Sophia rarely approves of anything I do. It's the nature of our relationship. Gabriel poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal decanter, handing one to me before taking a seat opposite. She's concerned that my focus is divided. Is it? His eyes met mine, dark and intent. Yes, it is. The admission hung between us, fraught with implications neither of us seemed ready to address directly. What did she mean about the council? I asked, changing the subject slightly. Gabriel's expression closed off fractionally. The Council of Families oversees certain traditional interests. They have no direct authority over individual family decisions, but they wield influence in our community. And they disapprove of me too? They're concerned about the potential complications you represent. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But their concerns, like Sophia's, are irrelevant to me. Because I saved your life? That was the beginning, he acknowledged. But it's become more than that now. I swallowed hard, unwilling to ask him to elaborate. Your sister mentioned your father. Dead 3 years now, Gabriel replied, a flicker of genuine grief crossing his face. Heart attack. Unexpected, despite his age. And you took over the family. Business. His smile was sardonic. Yes, all aspects of it. He studied me for a moment. You're not supposed to be out of bed for extended periods yet. Dr. Reeves was quite clear about that. The abrupt change of subject was clearly deliberate. I'm fine, I insisted. The physical therapy was tiring, but I'm not an invalid. Still, you should rest before dinner. He rose, effectively ending the conversation. I have business to attend to this afternoon, but I'll return by 7. Will you join me? It wasn't really a request, despite the phrasing. Yes, though I should have dinner with Emma tonight. She mentioned she's barely seen me today. Gabriel considered this, then nodded. We'll have dinner in the family dining room then. The 3 of us. His tone softened slightly. She misses you, though she's been very brave about understanding your need to recover. The reference to Emma spending enough time with Gabriel to confide such feelings to him created a complicated twist of emotions in my chest. Gratitude that she had someone caring for her while I healed. Jealousy that this stranger was building such a bond with my child, and underneath it all, a growing awareness that the 3 of us were beginning to function as some kind of unit. A family unit, my mind whispered traitorously. 7 o'clock then, I agreed, rising as well. Though I should warn you, Emma will probably talk about squids all through dinner. Apparently, they have 3 hearts. Gabriel's smile was genuine this time, warming his typically guarded features. I look forward to it. I find your daughter's enthusiasm for learning refreshing. As he escorted me back to the main staircase, his hand hovering near the small of my back without quite touching me, I was acutely conscious of the growing complexity of our situation. What had begun as a simple act, pushing a stranger away from danger, had evolved into something I lacked words to adequately describe. Protection, captivity, debt, attraction, all insufficient to capture the reality of what was developing between us. Rest well, Eliza, Gabriel said as we reached the stairs. I'll see you this evening. I nodded and began to ascend, feeling his eyes on me until I turned the corner out of sight. In my room, I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling as I turned over the fragments of conversation I'd overheard. The council, family business, rumors that Gabriel was considering bringing Emma and me into the family permanently. What did that mean? And more disturbingly, why didn't the prospect terrify me as much as it should? Dinner that evening was unlike any we'd shared previously. Rather than the formal dining room with its imposing table and elaborate service, we gathered in what Gabriel called the family dining room, a smaller, warmer space with comfortable chairs and a round table that encouraged conversation. Emma was delighted by the arrangement, especially when Gabriel pulled out her chair with the same courtly gesture he used for me. "Just like a princess," she whispered, smoothing her dress with solemn dignity. "Indeed," Gabriel agreed, his expression softer than I'd ever seen it as he regarded my daughter. "Though far more intelligent than most princesses, I'd wager." Emma giggled, immediately launching into an enthusiastic recounting of her day's lessons, particularly the squid dissection. Gabriel listened attentively, asking questions that demonstrated genuine interest rather than adult condescension. He drew her out, encouraging her natural curiosity while gently correcting misunderstandings in a way that didn't diminish her excitement. It was charming, disarmingly so. This dangerous man, who commanded an empire built on illegal activities and inspired fear in powerful people, was treating my daughter's scientific discoveries with the seriousness typically reserved for business associates. "And Mr. Gabriel," Emma was saying, barely pausing for breath between bites of her pasta. "Dr. Harlow says we might go to the aquarium soon. A real one, with sharks and everything." I stiffened slightly. "Emma, we can't leave the estate, remember? It's not safe." My daughter's face fell momentarily before Gabriel interjected. "Actually, arrangements could be made." He met my surprised gaze calmly. "The Boston Aquarium has after-hours private tours available for certain donors. With proper security, it would be quite safe." "Really?" Emma's eyes widened with excitement. "Could we go, Mommy? Please?" I hesitated, caught between not wanting to disappoint her and my wariness of leaving our current sanctuary. "I'm not sure. I wouldn't suggest it if I couldn't guarantee your safety," Gabriel said quietly. "Both of you." There was something in his expression, a determination, perhaps even a need to provide this experience for Emma, that made it difficult to refuse. "We'll see," I temporized. "Let's talk about it after dinner." Emma accepted this diplomatic answer with minimal disappointment, especially when dessert arrived, elaborate chocolate creations that had her wide-eyed with delight. "May I be excused to get my astronomy book?" she asked after finishing her dessert. "I want to show Mr. Gabriel the new constellations I learned today." I glanced at Gabriel, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "Of course, sweetheart, but don't be too long. It's nearly bedtime." After she darted away, a comfortable silence settled between us. Gabriel sipped his wine, watching me over the rim of his glass. "You've raised an exceptional child," he finally said. "Thank you." I toyed with my water glass, oddly nervous now that we were alone. "She seems comfortable here, with you." "Children are remarkably adaptable and insightful." He set his glass down carefully. "She knows I would never allow harm to come to either of you." The simple statement carried the weight of an oath. "Because I saved your life?" Gabriel's expression turned thoughtful. "That was the catalyst, yes. But my feelings have evolved beyond simple obligation." Feelings. The word hung in the air between us, fraught with implication. "Gabriel, you overheard Sophia today," he interrupted gently. "You know there are rumors about my intentions toward you and Emma." I swallowed hard. "Yes. What you may not realize is that such rumors have significant implications in my world. For a man in my position to show particular interest in someone outside the family, especially someone unconnected to our traditional circles, sends a powerful message." "What message?" His eyes held mine, intense and unwavering. "That you're under my personal protection. That any move against you would be considered a direct challenge to me. That you're—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Important to me in ways that transcend business or obligation." My heart thundered in my chest as I processed the implications. "Are we? Important to you?" "More than I expected," he admitted, a rare vulnerability crossing his features. "More than is perhaps wise given our circumstances." Before I could formulate a response, Emma returned, clutching her astronomy book and vibrating with excitement. The moment between Gabriel and me passed, but the echoes of his words lingered, coloring the remainder of the evening as Emma showed him her favorite constellations, and he, in turn, taught her the Italian names for the stars, names he'd learned from his grandfather as a child. It was past Emma's bedtime when I finally insisted we conclude the evening. Gabriel rose as we did, his hand brushing mine briefly as he helped me with my chair. "I'll walk you both upstairs," he said, a statement rather than a question. Emma took his offered hand without hesitation, chattering about the aquarium as we ascended the grand staircase. When we reached her room, She surprised us both by throwing her arms around Gabriel's waist in a spontaneous hug. "Thank you for dinner, and for maybe taking us to see the sharks," she said, her voice muffled against his expensive shirt. For a moment, Gabriel seemed frozen, genuinely startled by the child's affection. Then slowly, almost cautiously, he placed a hand on her dark curls in a gentle gesture of acknowledgement. "You're very welcome, little one." As I tucked Emma into bed minutes later, her eyelids already drooping with exhaustion, she murmured sleepily, "I like it here, Mommy. Mr. Gabriel makes you smile again." The innocent observation caught me off guard. "Does he?" "Mm-hmm." She yawned widely. "Not like with Daddy. Different smiles. Better ones." Before I could question her further, she'd drifted off to sleep, leaving me to contemplate her perception. Had I been smiling more? Was Gabriel Castellano, against all logic and self-preservation, becoming someone who made me happy rather than merely someone who kept us safe? The thought was as terrifying as it was exhilarating. I found Gabriel waiting in the hallway outside Emma's room, his tall figure silhouetted against the soft lighting. He'd removed his suit jacket at some point during the evening, and the more casual appearance, just shirt sleeves and vest, created an illusion of accessibility that was dangerously appealing. "Is she asleep?" he asked softly. I nodded, pulling the door closed behind me. "She's exhausted, but happy." "And you?" His gaze was penetrating in the dim light. "Are you happy, Eliza?" The question was deceptively simple, yet loaded with complexity. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I'm grateful for your protection, for everything you've done for Emma. But this situation, being here, dependent on you, it's complicated. Life is complicated," he replied, stepping closer. "Especially life in my world. But some things are remarkably simple." "What things?" Instead of answering, he reached out slowly, giving me ample time to retreat if I wished. When I remained still, his fingers brushed my cheek in a gossamer touch that nonetheless sent electricity racing through my veins. "This," he murmured, "what's happening between us. It may be unexpected, unwelcome even, but it's not complicated. It simply is." I should have stepped back, should have reminded him of all the reasons any attraction between us was impossible, the circumstances of our meeting, the danger surrounding him, the vast differences in our lives and values. But as his hand cupped my face with a gentleness I wouldn't have believed him capable of, all those rational objections seemed to evaporate. "Gabriel," I whispered, his name both warning and invitation on my lips. His response was to lean down slowly, deliberately, his intention clear. Again, he gave me time to retreat, to refuse. And again, I remained still, caught in the gravitational pull of something I couldn't name or resist. When his lips finally met mine, the contact was tentative at first, a question rather than a demand. Then, as I responded despite my better judgment, the kiss deepened, becoming something hungry and revelatory. His hand slid into my hair, cradling my head with surprising tenderness, even as his mouth claimed mine with escalating passion. I was lost in the sensation, in the heat building between us, when a sharp pain in my shoulder made me wince involuntarily. Gabriel immediately pulled back, concern replacing desire in his expression. "I've hurt you," he said, his voice rough. "No," I assured him, breathless and disoriented. "It's just my shoulder. It's still tender." He stepped back, creating space between us that felt both necessary and regrettable. "You should rest." The abrupt shift left me off balance, caught between relief at the interruption and disappointment at its timing. "Gabriel, we'll talk tomorrow," he promised, his composure returning visibly. "But for now you need to heal, and he smiled ruefully, "I need to remember that some treasures are worth waiting for." With that enigmatic statement, he brushed his lips against my forehead in a gesture so gentle it made my throat tighten, then turned and walked away down the dimly lit hallway, his footsteps nearly silent on the thick carpet. I retreated to my room, my mind and body in tumult. I'd just kissed Gabriel Castellano, criminal, protector, captor, savior, and worse, I wanted to do it again. Despite everything I knew about him, despite all the reasons it was a terrible idea, I craved his touch like nothing I'd experienced before. Emma's words echoed in my mind as I prepared for bed. "Mr. Gabriel makes you smile again. Not like with Daddy. Different smiles, better ones. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. You're falling in love with him." The accusation, delivered without preamble as I entered the kitchen for my morning coffee, froze me in the doorway. Sofia Castellano sat at the massive island, Immaculate in another designer suit despite the early hour, a porcelain espresso cup posed delicately between her manicured fingers. "Excuse me?" I managed, moving toward the coffee pot with forced casualness. "Don't play coy, Ms. Reed. It doesn't suit you." Sophia's dark eyes, so like her brother's yet lacking their occasional warmth, assessed me coolly. "You're developing feelings for Gabriel. It's written all over your face." It had been 3 days since that kiss in the hallway outside Emma's room, 3 days of charged glances and brief touches that left me increasingly confused about my own emotions. Gabriel had been busy with what he vaguely termed business matters, our interactions limited to shared meals and occasional moments in the gardens or library. Yet each encounter had deepened whatever this was between us, building a tension that seemed destined to snap. "I don't see how that's any of your business," I replied, pouring my coffee with hands I forced to remain steady. Sophia's laugh was brittle. "Everything involving my brother is my business. The Castellano family has survived for generations because we protect our interests, and each other." I turned to face her fully, abandoning pretense. "From what? Women who take bullets for family members? From complications, vulnerabilities, distractions." She set her cup down with precise control. "From outsiders who don't understand our world or the responsibilities that come with our name. I never asked to be part of your world, and yet here you are, living in our ancestral home, wearing clothes purchased with family money, allowing my brother to become attached to you and your daughter." Her voice hardened. "You may not have asked for it, Ms. Reed, but you've certainly accepted the benefits." The accusation stung because it contained enough truth to be uncomfortable. I had accepted Gabriel's protection, his generosity, without truly confronting what that might eventually cost. "What exactly are you afraid of, Sophia? That I'll hurt your brother? That I'll somehow damage your precious family reputation?" I took a defiant sip of my coffee. "Or is it that I don't fit neatly into your world of power and privilege?" Something flickered in Sophia's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, that the waitress she'd so readily dismissed had backbone. "What I fear, Ms. Reed, is that you'll destroy everything my family has built over generations because you don't understand the rules of engagement. Then explain them to me." I pulled out a stool opposite her, determined to confront whatever this was directly, instead of vague warnings and disapproval. Sophia studied me for a long moment, as if recalculating her approach. Finally, she nodded, a decision apparently made. "Very well. Plain speaking it is." She leaned forward slightly. "My brother is not just a wealthy man with a dangerous sideline. He is the head of one of the 5 founding families that have controlled the eastern seaboard's underground economy for over a century." "I've gathered as much," I acknowledged. "What you may not have gathered is what that position entails. Gabriel doesn't just run businesses, Ms. Reed. He makes life and death decisions daily. He negotiates with politicians, judges, police commissioners. He balances the interests of hundreds of people whose livelihoods depend on his judgment." Her perfectly painted lips thinned. "And he does it all while maintaining the legitimate facade that allows our family to exist in both worlds." I absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man who gently taught my daughter about stars with the powerful figure Sophia described. What does any of this have to do with me? Everything. Sophia's intensity was unsettling. When a man in Gabriel's position shows particular favor to someone, it sends ripples through our entire community. People notice. They speculate. They look for advantages. And enemies, like Viktor Kozlov, look for weaknesses to exploit. "I'm not a weakness," I protested. "Aren't you?" She arched a perfect eyebrow. "My brother has diverted significant resources to your protection. He's distracted by concern for your welfare. He makes decisions with you in mind rather than purely family interests. If that's not a vulnerability, I don't know what is." Put in those terms, I couldn't entirely refute her logic. "So what do you want from me, Sophia? To leave? To put my daughter in danger?" "No." Her answer surprised me. "What's done is done. Gabriel has made his choice and the Castellanos stand together, even when we disagree." She fixed me with an uncompromising stare. "What I want is for you to understand exactly what you're stepping into before it's too late to step back out, which is a life where every choice has consequences beyond your imagination, where a wrong word at the wrong time can start a war, where your daughter will grow up learning to check under her car for explosives and recognize undercover FBI agents at her school." Sophia's voice had lost its sharp edge, replaced with something that might almost be concern. "A life where loving Gabriel Castellano means accepting everything that comes with him, The power, the danger, the violence. All of it. The stark reality she painted left me momentarily speechless. I'd been so focused on our immediate circumstances, the shooting, the danger from Kozlov, the strange captivity that had evolved into something else entirely, that I hadn't truly confronted the long-term implications. "You think I'm in love with your brother," I finally said, neither confirming nor denying. "I know you are, just as I know he's in love with you." Sophia's certainty was unnerving. "Gabriel hasn't looked at a woman the way he looks at you since before our father died. He's never brought anyone into this house, into the heart of our operation. And he's certainly never formed an attachment to a child the way he has with your Emma. He's protective because I saved his life," I insisted, though the argument sounded hollow even to my own ears. Sophia's smile was knowing and slightly sad. "Is that what you tell yourself? That all of this, the clothes, the tutors for Emma, the elite medical care, the way he watches you when you're not looking, is merely repayment of a debt?" I looked away, unable to maintain eye contact as she laid bare the convenient fiction I'd been clinging to. "What do you expect me to say?" "Nothing, but I expect you to think very carefully about what happens next." She rose with fluid grace, straightening her already immaculate suit. "Because my brother won't be the only one dealing with the consequences if you decide to step fully into our world. Your daughter will too." She turned to go, then paused at the doorway. "One more thing, Ms. Reed. Despite what you might think, I don't dislike you. In fact, I respect what you did for Gabriel. But this isn't about like or dislike. It's about family. And the Castellano family has survived for generations because we face reality, however uncomfortable it might be." With that parting shot, she glided out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with my cooling coffee and churning thoughts. The rest of the morning passed in a haze of distraction. I went through the motions of my physical therapy session, my mind elsewhere as Ms. Santos guided me through increasingly challenging exercises for my healing shoulder. "You've made remarkable progress," she commented as we finished. "Another week, and we can begin more intensive rehabilitation." I nodded absently, my thoughts still tangled in Sophia's warnings. What exactly was I doing here? What future could possibly exist between a single mother who'd spent her life struggling to make ends meet and a man who commanded an empire built on activities I'd always considered wrong? More importantly, what kind of life would Emma have if we remained in Gabriel's world? Sophia's chilling words about checking for explosives and recognizing FBI agents echoed in my mind. Was that the future I wanted for my bright, curious daughter? "Ms. Reed?" Ms. Santos was watching me with concern. "Are you feeling unwell?" I forced a smile. "Just tired. Thank you for the session." After she departed, I wandered restlessly through the mansion, eventually finding myself in the library, a 2-story marvel of leather-bound volumes and hidden reading nooks that had become Emma's favorite place. She wasn't there now. Dr. Harlow had taken her to the greenhouse to study plant biology, continuing the comprehensive science curriculum he'd designed for her. I trailed my fingers along the spines of ancient books, breathing in the comforting scent of paper and leather. This room, more than any other in the mansion, felt like a sanctuary, a place where the complex reality outside its walls could temporarily be forgotten. "I thought I might find you here." Gabriel's voice startled me from my reverie. I turned to find him leaning against one of the tall bookcases, watching me with a mixture of affection and something deeper, more intense. "I didn't hear you come in," I said, suddenly hyper-aware of being alone with him for the first time since our kiss. "I can move quietly when I choose to." He approached slowly, as if sensing my unsettled state. "Lucia said you missed lunch." I wasn't hungry. In truth, I'd been avoiding the common areas of the house, needing time to process my conversation with Sophia. Gabriel stopped an arm's length away, maintaining a careful distance that somehow felt more intimate than if he'd stood closer. "You seem troubled." "I had an interesting conversation with your sister this morning," I admitted, seeing no point in dissembling. His expression tightened fractionally. "Did you? And what pearls of wisdom did Sophia share?" "She painted a rather vivid picture of what being part of your family actually means." I met his gaze directly. "Explosives under cars. FBI surveillance. Violence as a way of life." "Ah." Gabriel didn't seem surprised. "Sophia has always had a flair for the dramatic, though not entirely inaccurate," he conceded. "Which part? The explosives or the FBI?" "Both have been known to occur, though far less frequently than popular culture would suggest." His tone was matter of fact, neither apologetic nor defensive. My world has its dangers, Eliza. I've never pretended otherwise. But you haven't been completely forthcoming either, I countered, about what you really do, about what it would mean for Emma and me if we... I trailed off, unsure how to articulate the nebulous future that had begun to take shape between us. If you stayed, he finished for me. If what's growing between us continued to develop. The directness of his statement left no room for pretense. Yes. Gabriel moved to one of the library's window seats, gesturing for me to join him. When I did, settling at the opposite end to maintain some distance between us, he spoke with a frankness I hadn't expected. The Castellano family has operated on the margins of legality for generations, he began. We began as importers during Prohibition, expanded into various enterprises during the Depression, and gradually built a network that spans multiple industries, some legitimate, some not. His candor was both refreshing and disconcerting. So you're admitting you're a criminal? I'm admitting that I operate businesses that current laws classify as illegal. Yes. He met my gaze steadily. I'm also the owner of 17 legitimate companies that employ over 5,000 people, a major donor to 3 children's hospitals, and the primary financial supporter of a foundation that provides scholarships to underprivileged students. And that makes the illegal activities acceptable? No. It simply makes me more than a one-dimensional villain from a police procedural. A hint of wry humor colored his tone. The world isn't divided neatly into good people and bad people, Eliza. Most of us exist in the gray areas between. I couldn't argue with that fundamental truth. And the violence? The enemies like Kozlov? Gabriel's expression sobered. An unfortunate reality of operating in unregulated markets. Without legal recourse to resolve disputes, other methods become necessary. He leaned forward slightly. But I'm not a senseless killer, Eliza. Violence is a last resort, not a first response. That's hardly comforting. It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to be honest. His eyes held mine. You deserve the truth, however uncomfortable. Because you're right. Any future that includes me will include certain realities that can't be wished away. The calm acknowledgement of what we'd both been circling, the possibility of a shared future, sent a flutter of both anxiety and something dangerously close to hope through me. And what about Emma? I asked, voicing my deepest concern. What kind of life would she have as part of your world? Something softened in Gabriel's expression at the mention of my daughter. She would have security, education, opportunities beyond anything you could provide alone. He hesitated, then added with unexpected vulnerability, and she would have me, someone who already cares for her deeply, and would protect her with his life if necessary. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Whatever else Gabriel Castellano might be, his growing attachment to my daughter was genuine. I'd seen it in the patience with which he answered her endless questions, the respect with which he treated her ideas, the gentle way he'd begun to guide her without ever undermining my authority as her mother. But at what cost? I persisted. Growing up surrounded by danger and illegal activities? Learning that violence is an acceptable way to resolve problems? Or learning that family loyalty transcends everything? Gabriel countered. That responsibility means protecting those who depend on you, whatever it takes. That power, used wisely, can create opportunity and security for many. He reached across the space between us, his hand covering mine. Emma would grow up knowing she was loved, valued, and protected. Isn't that what truly matters? I stared at our joined hands, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine. It's not that simple. It could be, he suggested quietly, if you allowed it to be. Before I could respond, the library doors opened, and Emma burst in, followed by a more sedate Dr. Harlow. She carried a small potted plant, her face alight with excitement. "Mommy, Mr. Gabriel, look what I grew." She rushed toward us, carefully holding her treasure. "It's a bean plant, and I measured it every day and made a chart of its growth just like real scientists do." Gabriel withdrew his hand from mine as Emma approached, but the warmth in his eyes as he regarded my daughter remained. "That's excellent work, little one. Very scientific indeed." Emma beamed under his approval, then launched into a detailed explanation of her experiment, complete with observations about soil composition and light exposure. Dr. Harlow added occasional clarifications, clearly proud of his enthusiastic pupil. As I watched my daughter interact so naturally with Gabriel, I was struck by how comfortable she had become in his presence, how easily she'd accepted him as a figure of authority and affection in her life. In just 2 weeks, he'd become someone she turned to for approval, for answers, for the kind of paternal attention she'd never consistently received from her own father. The realization was both heartwarming and terrifying. If I decided we couldn't stay in Gabriel's world, would Emma understand? Or would she see it as another abandonment, another father figure vanishing from her life? "Mommy, are you listening?" Emma's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "I said we're going to plant it in the garden tomorrow so it can get bigger." "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart," I replied, smoothing her curls affectionately. "You've done amazing work." Gabriel rose, straightening his suit jacket with that unconscious grace that seemed part of his nature. "Dr. Harlow, perhaps you could take Emma to the kitchen for a snack. I believe Lucia mentioned baking cookies this afternoon." Emma's eyes lit up at the prospect of cookies, momentarily distracting her from her beloved plant. After they'd departed, Gabriel turned back to me, his expression serious once more. "We haven't finished our conversation," he said, "but I need to attend to some business matters now. Perhaps we could continue over dinner. Just the two of us?" The prospect of a private dinner, without Emma's buffer presence, sent a flutter of nervous anticipation through me. "All right." His smile was warm enough to chase away some of my uncertainty. 8:00, in the small dining room. He stepped closer, his hand rising to brush a strand of hair from my face in a touch so gentle it made my breath catch. "And Eliza, whatever you decide about our future, know that your safety, and Emma's, will always be guaranteed. That's not conditional on anything else between us." The distinction was important, a separation of his obligation to protect us from any personal relationship that might develop. It was oddly reassuring to know that even if I ultimately decided a future with Gabriel was impossible, Emma and I wouldn't be abandoned to Kozlov's vengeance. "Thank you," I said softly, "for making that clear." He nodded once, then departed, leaving me alone with my tumultuous thoughts once more. The remainder of the afternoon passed in a blur of activity. Emma showed me every plant in the greenhouse, followed by an enthusiastic tour of the chemistry setup Dr. Harlow had arranged in one of the mansion's spare rooms. Her happiness was undeniable. This environment, with its endless learning opportunities and attentive adults, had allowed her natural intelligence to flourish in ways her overcrowded public school never could have. "And next week," she chattered, as we returned to our rooms to prepare for dinner, "Dr. Harlow says we might dissect a frog. A real one, not just a picture in a book." "That's wonderful," I managed, suppressing my instinctive grimace at the thought. Emma's sharp eyes caught my expression anyway. "You think it's gross," she accused, grinning. "Maybe a little," I admitted, "but I'm proud of your scientific curiosity." She skipped ahead of me, twirling in the hallway. "Mr. Gabriel says curiosity is the most important quality in life, that asking questions is how we learn and grow." Another pearl of wisdom from the man who was increasingly shaping my daughter's worldview. I couldn't fault the sentiment, though I wondered if Gabriel applied the same philosophy to his own enterprises. After helping Emma with her bath and settling her for the evening with Lucia, who had promised to read her a chapter of the astronomy book before bed, I returned to my room to prepare for my dinner with Gabriel. The closet that had initially symbolized Gabriel's high-handed control now provided a welcome resource, as I searched for something appropriate. I eventually selected a simple black dress with subtle detailing at the neckline, elegant without being overtly formal. As I dressed, I confronted the reality that this evening would likely determine the course of our future. Gabriel clearly wanted more than the strange limbo we currently inhabited. The question was whether I could accept everything that came with him: the danger, the criminal activities, the complex moral compromises, and deeper still, whether I could trust my own feelings after the whirlwind changes of the past 2 weeks. Was what I felt for Gabriel genuine attraction and growing affection, or simply a response to trauma and dependency? Stockholm Syndrome dressed up as romance? My reflection offered no answers as I applied minimal makeup and arranged my hair, which had grown slightly longer during our stay at the mansion. The woman who stared back at me looked different from the exhausted waitress who'd stumbled into that convenience store 2 weeks ago. Rested, healthier, perhaps even beautiful in the expensive dress and subtle jewelry I'd selected. But was she still me, or was she becoming someone else entirely? Someone who could stand beside Gabriel Castellano and accept the darkness in his world. At precisely 8:00, I made my way to the small dining room, my pulse racing with anticipation and anxiety. When I entered, I found the space transformed. The usual bright lighting had been replaced by the soft glow of candles placed strategically around the room. The table was set for 2, with fine china and crystal that gleamed in the flickering light. Music played softly from hidden speakers. classical strings that created an atmosphere of intimate elegance. Gabriel stood as I entered, his eyes warming as they took in my appearance. He'd changed into a dark suit that fit his powerful frame perfectly, the crisp white of his shirt, a stark contrast against his olive skin. "You look beautiful," he said simply, moving to pull out my chair. "Thank you." I settled into my seat, hyper-aware of his proximity as he gently pushed in my chair. "This is quite a setting. I thought we deserved something special." He returned to his own seat, his movements fluid and controlled. "Wine?" I nodded, watching as he poured ruby liquid into delicate crystal glasses. "Where is everyone?" The mansion seemed unusually quiet. "I've given the household staff the evening off, except for Marco, who'll serve our dinner." Gabriel gestured to a discreet man standing near the service entrance. "And the security team is maintaining their usual perimeter. We won't be disturbed." The implication of privacy sent a shiver of anticipation through me. "I see." Marco approached silently, presenting the first course, an exquisite arrangement of seafood so artfully plated it seemed a shame to disturb it. After serving us, he disappeared as silently as he'd arrived, leaving us alone. "Emma mentioned you might take her to dissect a frog next week," I said, searching for neutral conversation to ease the tension between us. Gabriel smiled, the expression genuinely warm. "Dr. Harlow suggested it. She has a remarkable scientific mind for someone so young." "She does," I agreed. "She's flourishing here, with all these opportunities. Opportunities she could continue to have," Gabriel said quietly, bringing us directly to the heart of the matter without preamble. "Permanently." I set down my fork, my appetite suddenly secondary to the conversation. "Gabriel, let me finish, please." His tone was gentle but determined. "I know Sophia spoke to you this morning about the realities of my world, about the dangers and complexities that come with the Castellano name." He leaned forward slightly. "What she likely didn't express is how differently I see my family's future compared to my father and grandfather." "What do you mean?" "The old ways are changing, Eliza. The digital economy, globalization, evolving laws, they're creating both challenges and opportunities." His eyes held mine intently. "I've been gradually shifting our enterprises toward legitimate businesses for years. Banking, technology, real estate, shipping, all legal, all profitable. This was unexpected." "You're going legitimate?" "Transitioning," he clarified. "It's a process that takes time, patience, and careful management. Some of our traditional interests can't be abandoned overnight without creating dangerous power vacuums or betraying long-standing alliances." I processed this new information, trying to fit it into the picture I'd been building of Gabriel and his world. "So you're saying eventually you'll be completely legal?" "I'm saying that by the time Emma reaches college age, the Castellano family will be primarily known as successful entrepreneurs and philanthropists, with our more colorful history fading into background rumor and speculation." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine in a touch that sent electricity through my veins. "I'm building a future, Eliza. A legitimate legacy that Emma could be part of without compromise or danger." The vision he painted was seductive in its promise. A future where the moral conflicts that troubled me would gradually fade away, where Emma could benefit from Gabriel's wealth and influence without being tainted by criminal associations. "And in the meantime?" I asked, needing to confront the present reality rather than future possibilities. "While you're transitioning? In the meantime, you and Emma would be protected from any unpleasantness. You would never be involved in the less savory aspects of my business. Your life would be one of comfort, security, and yes, certain social responsibilities, charity events, cultural patronage, the public face of the legitimate Castellano enterprises." His thumb traced circles on my palm, the intimate gesture at odds with the business-like description. "Emma would have the finest education, travel opportunities, cultural experiences most children can only dream of. And all I have to do is overlook the fact that some of your income still comes from illegal activities," I said, withdrawing my hand gently but firmly. Gabriel didn't flinch from the blunt assessment. "All you have to do is trust that I'm building something better, something worthy of you and Emma." His gaze intensified. "And accept that I've fallen in love with you, Eliza Reed." The declaration hung in the air between us, simultaneously expected and shocking. My heart raced as I struggled to formulate a response that honored both the undeniable feelings growing between us and the very real concerns I still harbored. "I don't know if I can," I finally whispered. "I don't know if I can reconcile who you are with who I've always tried to be. Someone honest, someone who follows rules, Someone Emma can look up to without reservation. And if I told you that much of what you think you know about me is based on assumption rather than reality, Gabriel countered, that the man sitting across from you now, the man who's helped Emma with her science projects and chess games, who's respected your boundaries despite wanting nothing more than to break them down, is more truly me than the shadowy criminal figure you've constructed in your mind. I don't know what to believe anymore, I admitted, the confusion of the past weeks finally spilling over. 2 weeks ago, I was just trying to keep Emma fed and housed. Now I'm having dinner with a man who commands an empire, who's offering us a life I never imagined possible, who says he loves me after knowing me for 14 days. Time is relative when it comes to certain realizations, Gabriel said softly. I've known political allies for decades whom I understand less than I understand you after 2 weeks. He reached for my hand again, and this time I didn't pull away. What I feel for you isn't rational or explainable, Eliza. It simply is. The raw honesty in his voice resonated with something inside me, the same inexplicable certainty I'd been fighting since the moment I'd opened my eyes in the hospital to find him watching over me. I think I might be falling in love with you too, I confessed, the words simultaneously terrifying and liberating. But I'm afraid of what that means. For me, for Emma, for who we'll become if we step fully into your world. Gabriel's smile was both triumphant and tender. You'll become exactly who you're meant to be. Strong, protected, valued beyond measure. His fingers tightened around mine. And I'll become a better man because of you. Because having you and Emma in my life gives me something I've never had before. What's that? A reason beyond obligation and family expectation. A future worth fighting for that isn't just about power and legacy. His voice dropped lower, intimate in the candlelit room. You make me want to be worthy of the trust you showed when you stepped between me and that bullet, Eliza. You make me want to create a world where Emma can grow up proud of the man who loves her mother. His words touched something deep inside me, a longing I'd suppressed since Daniel's betrayal, the desire for partnership, for someone to share the burden of life's challenges, for Emma to have a father figure who wouldn't abandon her. I need time, I said finally, to be sure that what I'm feeling is real and not just gratitude or dependency. Of course, Gabriel nodded, though I could see the flicker of impatience he quickly suppressed. Though I should mention that Kozlov's situation is evolving. There may be developments soon that change our immediate circumstances. What kind of developments? The kind that might eliminate the immediate threat to your safety. His tone was carefully neutral, which would mean you'd have the freedom to leave this estate if you wished. The prospect of returning to the outside world after our sheltered existence here was suddenly less appealing than it should have been. I see. My preference, Gabriel continued, his eyes never leaving mine, would be for you and Emma to remain here regardless of Kozlov's status, not as protected witnesses or guests, but as— He hesitated, then finished simply, as family. The word hung between us, weighted with implications. Family meant permanence, commitment, a fundamental change in identity from Eliza Reed, struggling single mother, to someone connected to the Castellano name and everything it represented. That's a significant step, I observed, my voice barely above a whisper. The most significant, he agreed, and not one I've ever contemplated before you. Before I could respond, the quiet of the evening was shattered by the sound of raised voices and hurried footsteps in the hallway outside. Gabriel was on his feet instantly, his relaxed demeanor replaced by alert tension. The door burst open, revealing Antonio, Gabriel's head of security, his normally impassive face tight with urgency. Sir, we have a situation. Kozlov's men have breached the perimeter at 2 points. The Eastgate team is down. Gabriel's transformation was immediate and complete. The man who had just professed his love with tender vulnerability vanished, replaced by someone harder, colder, frighteningly efficient. Activate Protocol Nightshade. How many hostiles? At least 12 that we've identified. Heavily armed. And the package? Gabriel's voice was razor sharp. Antonio's eyes flickered briefly to me before returning to his boss. Secure for now. Rodriguez is moving her to the safe room as we speak. Emma. They were talking about Emma. Fear gripped me, icy and immediate. I need to be with my daughter, I said, rising from my chair. Gabriel turned to me, his expression softening fractionally. You will be. Antonio will take you to the safe room while I coordinate our response. He crossed to me in 2 quick strides, his hands gripping my shoulders with controlled urgency. Listen carefully, Eliza. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, stay in that room with Emma until I personally come for you. Understand? The intensity of his gaze left no room for argument. Yes. Good. He pressed a swift, hard kiss to my forehead. Go now. Antonio will protect you. As the security chief led me from the room at a rapid pace, I glanced back to see Gabriel speaking urgently into a phone, his free hand already reaching for what appeared to be a handgun, concealed in a hidden compartment beneath the sideboard. The reality of his world had just crashed violently into our candlelit dinner, shattering the illusion of normalcy we'd been carefully constructing. Now I would witness firsthand what it truly meant to be part of Gabriel Castellano's life. The danger Sofia had warned me about, made terrifyingly real. Antonio guided me through service corridors I hadn't known existed, moving with silent efficiency as distant sounds of conflict echoed through the mansion. My heart pounded with fear for Emma, for Gabriel, for what was happening in this place that had become our sanctuary. We descended a narrow staircase and arrived at what appeared to be a solid wall. Antonio pressed his palm against a concealed scanner, then entered a code on a hidden keypad. The wall slid open silently, revealing a steel door beyond. "Ms. Reed," came Rodriguez's voice from an intercom beside the door. "Please identify yourself." "It's me," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Eliza." After a series of electronic beeps, the steel door swung open, revealing a surprisingly comfortable room beyond, a space designed for extended occupation if necessary. Emma sat on a small sofa, her face pale but composed, a children's book open in her lap. She looked up as I entered, relief flooding her features. "Mommy!" She rushed to me, throwing her arms around my waist. "Mr. Rodriguez said bad men came and we have to hide, like a secret mission." I embraced her tightly, grateful for Rodriguez's effort to frame the danger in terms that wouldn't terrify her. "That's right, sweetheart. We need to stay here until Gabriel tells us it's safe." The steel door closed behind us with a heavy thud, multiple locks engaging automatically. Rodriguez, a younger member of Gabriel's security team, whom Emma had taken a particular liking to, nodded respectfully. "The room is secure, Ms. Reed. Reinforced walls, independent ventilation and power systems, communication links to the security center." He indicated a bank of monitors showing various areas of the estate, several displaying scenes of alarming activity. Men in tactical gear exchanging gunfire with Gabriel's security forces, smoke rising from what appeared to be the eastern perimeter. "Mr. Castellano will neutralize the threat. Our job is to keep you both safe until then." I guided Emma back to the sofa, trying to project a calm I didn't feel as I watched the silent violence unfolding on the monitors. This was the reality of Gabriel's world laid bare. Men with guns invading his home, putting everyone inside at risk, including my daughter. "Are those the bad men?" Emma asked, pointing to a monitor that showed darkly clad figures moving across the lawn. "The ones Mr. Gabriel protects us from." The innocent question crystallized everything in an instant of perfect clarity. This wasn't some abstract moral dilemma anymore. It was life and death, playing out in real time. Gabriel had warned us that Kozlov would kill us if given the chance, and now Kozlov's men were here, proving the threat had been real all along. "Yes," I answered softly. "Those are the bad men." Emma's small face grew serious. "Is Mr. Gabriel going to be okay?" I hesitated, unsure how to answer truthfully without frightening her. Before I could formulate a response, one of the monitors showed Gabriel himself, moving with deadly purpose through the main hall, flanked by several security team members. He held a gun with the confidence of someone intimately familiar with weapons, his expression cold and focused. "Mr. Gabriel is very good at protecting people," Rodriguez told Emma with quiet confidence. "Especially people he cares about." Emma nodded solemnly, accepting this assurance from someone she trusted. "He told me once that he'd never let anything bad happen to us, that he'd always keep us safe, and he will," I found myself saying, the words emerging with surprising conviction. "That's a promise he'll never break." As we huddled together on the sofa, watching the silent drama unfold on the monitors, I realized I'd already made the decision I'd been struggling with throughout dinner. When faced with real danger, not theoretical moral concerns, but actual men with guns coming to harm us, my instinct wasn't to run from Gabriel's world, but to trust in his ability to protect us within it. The next hour passed in tense silence, broken only by Emma's occasional questions and Rodriguez's reassuring answers. The monitors showed sporadic bursts of activity as Gabriel's security team systematically cleared the estate, driving back the invaders with professional efficiency. Twice I saw Gabriel himself, moving with tactical precision, coordinating his forces with hand signals and brief radio communications. Finally, The monitors showed the last of the intruders being subdued or retreating beyond the perimeter. Rodriguez's radio crackled to life, and Gabriel's voice emerged, tense but controlled. Nightshade secure. Status report. Package and companion safe. Rodriguez responded immediately. No breach of the redoubt. Understood. Maintain position until all clear is confirmed. Another 20 minutes passed before the heavy locks on the door began to disengage. I tensed instinctively, pulling Emma closer, but Rodriguez remained calm. "It's Mr. Castellano," he assured us. "Only he has the override codes." The door swung open to reveal Gabriel, his immaculate dinner attire now disheveled, a thin cut visible on his cheekbone, his eyes burning with contained fury and relief. He scanned the room quickly, assessing our safety before stepping inside. "It's over," he said simply. "Kozlov's men have been neutralized." "Neutralized?" I repeated, suddenly aware that I didn't want to know exactly what that meant in front of Emma. Gabriel understood immediately. "The situation has been resolved," he amended, his eyes meeting mine with silent communication. "The estate is secure again." Emma broke from my embrace, running to Gabriel with complete trust. "You kept us safe, just like you promised." For a moment, Gabriel seemed startled by her faith in him. Then slowly, with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the controlled violence I'd witnessed on the monitors, he knelt to her level. "I will always keep that promise, little one. Always." The conviction in his voice carried the weight of an oath. As he looked up at me over Emma's head, I saw the question in his eyes. Had tonight's events changed my perspective on our future? "Thank you," I said softly, "for protecting us." It wasn't the declaration of love and commitment he hoped for, but from the way his expression shifted, he understood that something fundamental had changed in my calculus. The theoretical dangers Sophia had warned about had materialized, and Gabriel had indeed proven himself capable of shielding us from them, exactly as he'd always claimed. Later that night, after Emma had finally fallen asleep in my bed, reluctant to be separated from me after the evening's excitement, Gabriel came to check on us. He'd showered and changed, though the cut on his cheek remained a vivid reminder of the violence that had erupted in our sheltered world. He stood in the doorway, watching Emma's peaceful slumber, with an expression that combined tenderness and fierce protectiveness. "She's remarkably resilient," he observed quietly. "Children often are," I replied, moving to join him at the threshold, keeping my voice low to avoid disturbing my daughter. "But she shouldn't have to be. She shouldn't have to hide in safe rooms from men with guns." "No, she shouldn't," Gabriel agreed, surprising me with his candor. "And in the future, she won't have to." "What do you mean?" His eyes met mine, determined and resolute. "Kozlov crossed a line tonight, coming here, threatening you and Emma directly. It changes everything." "How?" "The council will now support direct action against him. The other families will stand with us." His voice hardened slightly. "Kozlov won't survive the month, and when he's gone, the immediate threat to you and Emma will be eliminated." The cold certainty with which he pronounced another man's death sentence should have horrified me. Instead, I felt only relief. Relief that the specific danger to my daughter would soon be removed. What did that say about me? About how Gabriel's world was already changing my perspectives? "And then?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "And then you'll have a choice," Gabriel said, echoing his words from our interrupted dinner. "To return to your previous life, or to accept a new one, with me." I studied him in the dim light from the hallway. This complex man who moved between violence and tenderness with disturbing ease, who commanded killers yet read astronomy books to my daughter, who operated outside the law yet held himself to a rigid code of honor and protection. "I think I've already chosen," I said quietly. "Tonight, when those men came for us, I wasn't afraid for myself. I was afraid for Emma, and for you." I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. I was afraid of losing this strange new life before I'd even fully embraced it. Gabriel's expression transformed, hope and triumph battling with caution. "Eliza, I don't know if what I feel is love yet," I interrupted gently, "but I know it's real, and I know that when I had to choose between the moral ambiguity of your world and the certainty of your protection, I chose you. That has to mean something." "It means everything," he murmured, reaching out to trace the curve of my cheek with careful fingers. "I'll make you a promise, Eliza Reed, the same one I made to your daughter. I will always keep you safe. I will never let you regret choosing me." As he leaned down to seal that promise with a kiss, I knew our future would never be simple or conventional. There would be challenges, compromises, difficult conversations as we navigated the complex intersection of his world and mine. Emma would grow up with privileges and burdens most children never imagined, but she would also grow up loved, protected, and valued by her mother and by the dangerous, complicated man who had somehow become essential to us both in the space of 2 tumultuous weeks. "I'm holding you to that promise," I whispered against his lips. Gabriel's smile contained both tenderness and the steel that had allowed him to survive in his dangerous world. "I would expect nothing less. It's one of the reasons I love you." As I closed my eyes and surrendered to his kiss, I realized that the bullet that had torn through my shoulder 2 weeks ago had done more than injure me physically. It had shattered the boundaries of the life I'd known and opened a door to something I never could have imagined. By saving Gabriel Castellano's life, I had irrevocably changed my own, and despite all the danger and moral complexity, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. Some risks, it seemed, were worth taking after all.